Hey everyone, this is Flynn. Just want to give you an update on my progress so far on kind of scaling the range in which you can perform an action, or an ability I should say, or a grab objective action. Um, it's important to get these kind of accurate because most of the tutorials in Unity or just looking online to see the distance between two objects. Usually people just calculate the distance between 2 points on the object, and I assume it's probably around the center of the object to the center of this object, and that's not really super accurate because what you really typically want is the distance between the outer point of the object to the outer point of this object, right? Like the line here to here is shorter than the line the middle here to the middle here, which is longer. So I don't really want the distance between the middle of two objects. I want the distance between the furthest point of two objects. Like in Warhammer, when you measure something, you measure base to base. The outer portion of the base to the outer portion of the other model's base. So yeah, I mean that's how I'm going to try to calculate distance here. And it gets more complicated as you scale your objects here, right? See, here's my 3 monowells. This is scale 1, this is scale 3, scale 0.5. And you can say that all 3 of these have a point in the center, but the thickness, you can tell that the thickness of the model changes. So imagine this to be a circle, right? If I'm trying to grab the objective here, like so, if my range here is within this base here, this circle, like I want to be able to capture that objective, right? I don't want to fail because maybe my point in the center of this object to the point of this object is longer. That's what I'm trying to avoid here. So it took some while to code this. There's a number of other things I coded as well, right? In the selected radius, right? I want this to always be kind of proportional to the size of the object. So, and that's going to depend largely on the collider I have inside of all these objects. It's more helpful or easier to work with circular colliders because, again, if you have circular or like a capsule collider, and you try to keep your objects in a more circular way, instead of like this object here, it's going to be hard to make that a circle or a sphere, because when you keep it more kind of circular or spherical, I can just grab the point in the center and then add the radius to it, and that radius is going to be the thickness. You can see that the radius would apply on all edges of this, so it's easier to keep the model in that kind of shape, and so I can calculate the distance between two objects like that. So even just with the selected feature here, this yellow selected circle scales to the size of the model, right? See, I made this orc here 3 times the size of this one, and then the selected disc here scales proportionally, because realistically I designed it where this is always going to be the same size, but it's modified in a bit by the thickness of this model. If I were to scale this down, the yellow circle would look more like this. So this yellow circle always scales with the size of the model. And then you go with the movement phase too. These orcs both have the same movement number right now, and that's something to think about. They both have the same movement speed. Since this one's a bit larger, its radius is a bit larger too, because it's also a thicker model. But trying to think here, or maybe the radius is only slightly bigger, just to account for its thickness, but they both have the same movement. Yeah, And another thing I tried to do is I was going to have them, move within inside the circle, like so, but it got a little not as user-friendly to play with. And so you can kind of move from the center of this object to the center of the outer disk here. So you can see that part of the model, like half the model, is coming out of the disk. And I think it's I think maybe I would have preferred something like this, and maybe I will, where it's kind of always within the bounds here. And I can always change that up, but as long as I'm consistent, it's playable. I would like to have something like this, but right now it's kind of out of the edges. So I got the movement down, and then same with the abilities, right? I apply the these are all going to behave slightly different because it's the range here, the red circle here is modified slightly because of the thickness of the creature here. For instance, I activated that. Hold on. Here, it's going to be a little bit smaller here because the thickness of this model is a lot smaller than the thickness of this model. So it's red range. Range is always again determined by the outer edge of the model, right? And if the range is 5, the range is going to be a little bit longer in a way because the thickness of this model is bigger. So I mean, that's really just something to account for. So in a way, you can say that the larger models have slightly bigger ranges. So maybe I can shorten their ranges a bit. So let's see here. Grab objective. That's his. That's his. See, this is just slightly smaller. I think this one's slightly bigger just because the thickness of the model. Because it wouldn't be fair if this red disc was the same as this red disc. Because this guy actually has a larger reach you could think of. So you're kind of really reflecting that because this model has larger thickness, takes up more space. So in a way, you kind of have a larger reach. So this is all really just mechanics of scaling or having larger models to smaller models. That's really what it boils down to. See here. Move this to this objective. See, I can't grab it. I need to be within that base there. Another thing I did too, I allowed me to place my own model without moving completely away from the original space. Like, I can move only so slightly, and that will be a valid move. Before, I actually had it programmed where if you try to move on top of yourself, it would just be a failed move. You'd be obstructed. The movement would be blocked. But now I made it where you can kind of move on top of yourself and just move slightly in any direction, like so. I think that's just a more cleaner, more friendly user experience. So like that, and then I'm going to try to grab this objective now. Now hopefully everything's accurate with the range and everything. This well is in my range here, so good, and I can click it. And that's what you would expect, right? If this object here is within the range of this, you should be able to activate your ability. So let me move toward this one. Let's give this guy speed haste real quick. So he failed anyway. I want him to move faster. Let's see what happens here. Because now this is a normal scaled mono well. He's out of range. Can't activate it. Can't try to grab it. I'm going to move slightly closer. Well, now I'm really in range. That's going to work. I mean, it's obvious, right? Let me try to make this more subtle here. Okay, halfway in there. Still got it. What about now? Nope, completely out of it. about now? Now see, look, this one's a tough one. I'm interested if I'm going to be able to get this or not. I am touching it. It looks like I am. I am not sure. Okay, good. It works, and that's what I'm really trying to get at. You know, if you're a player and you're like, hey, I'm in range here, I should be able to grab this. You know, you should be able to attempt to grab it. So let's go over here to the small one. Got a small mono wheel over here. Let's try to move a bit faster. And that works. Now I don't think I want most of my creatures to be this big, but maybe I would have like a boss. You know, think about if I really do have a creature this scale or this size to this creature here. You know, got to make sure it all, you know, it all interacts well in the game. So move this a bit over here. Okay, so this one's a cool one. See, here's my range. I'm touching this. Hopefully I can roll the dice. Cool, it works. That's really what I'm hoping for. So I at least attempted. See, it basically, at the end of the day, the point of all this is to say, hey, if I'm in range, I should be able to execute my action, my abilities, or my grab objectives. If I'm visually in range, you know, that's the point of all this. And you know, it was made, you know, a bit more difficult when you dealt with sizes of creatures, when the size of the creature is significantly different. You know, before in my prior videos, if all my creatures were around this same size, you know, there might not have been any issues. But you know, I want to be creative with this game, and so I will have creatures probably of largely different sizes like this. And now I know I have that kind of functionality in my game where it really won't cause any issues, and I can scale the terrain pieces too, and that won't have any issues. So that's cool too. So I can scale terrain pieces, I can scale the creatures, and things should be functionally working correctly. Let's go ahead and do this guy real quick just to show you. Cool. Again, like I'm barely touching that edge and it works. That's what I expect to see. Anything else? Got my ability distances, got my movement. Well, that should be it. But yeah, this was a bit more difficult than I had hoped. I really maybe wish I thought I thought about this in the beginning, but you know, when you're trying to program and create something quickly, you don't think of all the issues. But that's cool that I actually got these you know, wrinkles ironed out right now instead of later on in game development. I could imagine people, you know, getting further along in the game development and then be like, oh yeah, this is not really perfect, and they would probably have to spend a lot more time than I did to figure out how to fix this and make it work properly. But yeah, so now I can play with different sizes of models, and the ranges between the models are pretty accurate. So anyway, that's all I have for this video. Next video is going to be interesting. I think I'm going to implement the save rolls, like so. When one creature does damage to another creature, I think I'm going to have the ability to have players roll save rolls, like in Warhammer or your typical RPGs, so that you can negate the damage, right? And I thought of a cool way to you know, implement it, just like I mean, I personally believe I have a pretty decent way of implementing this dice roll here. Very smooth and intuitive. And I'll have a similar process too when you're making save rolls. So that'll be the next video. Alright, that's it for this one.